Hi, good morning, everyone. Today we're just gonna give you an introduction into the SIF that is brought to you by Edelweiss Mutual Fund. So I'm just gonna introduce Ms. Shikha. So she heads the product department at Edelweiss AMC, and she brings about 15 years of experience in the financial product and strategy building. And she's a CA and CFA. She's also worked with different AMCs like Edelweiss, which is uh, Bandhan, which is erstwhile IDFC Asset Management, and she's also worked at strategy at CFO office at Crystal. So, Shikha ma'am, please take over and make us go through the SIF proposition altogether.
We can't hear you, Shikha. You're on mute, I think.
Yeah, so thanks, Rishabh, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. So very, very excited to bring to you the first hybrid long short SIF. So before we get into the details of our strategy, I think it'll be nice to spend some time on just brushing on what exactly is SIF. So let me just, I'm going to be, you can see my screen, right? Yeah, okay, great.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me just start off with a little bit of an introduction that why did this category even come into being, right? Why SIF? So a little background here. So probably more than a year ago or so, and in fact this has been brewing for even a longer period of time. There have been discussions that we have these categories which came into play in 2017 when SEBI came up with mutual fund categorization, and SEBI gave us equity, debt, hybrid, right? So they gave us several categories there within mutual fund. But there were discussions that probably we can explore or add certain more flavor with respect to derivatives and give a certain level of leeway within the mutual fund umbrella itself. So someone who wants a little bit of flavor of derivatives, relatively not as risky as say as or complex as what AIFs are allowed to do, but yeah, some additional flavor if we can give within mutual funds, and probably we can uh, give a minimum investment amount. So we know only certain type of investors who have a little bit of base understanding, who are a little nuanced investors, can consider this particular mutual fund category, and that is how SIFs came into being, which is late last year when the first set of regulations came in, that. And that what was introduced was that within the mutual fund umbrella itself, this we will have certain funds which will be allowed, and they would be allowed to do certain derivative strategies. Now, this is why, as you can see in front of your screen right now, this gives you a flavor of AIF stroke PMS, and also the tight regulatory landscape and the taxation efficiency of mutual funds. So it's a good blend between the two. So you get some strategy flexibilities of AIF and the familiarity, the taxation benefit of a mutual fund. So it is a very good combination of both of these vehicles that we have. So like I was saying, everything stays the same for an SIF. It is not that there is a Chinese wall between mutual fund and SIF, or like we have for AIF and PMS. That is, so for AIF and PMS, you of course have a Chinese wall. You have a different fund management team versus a mutual fund. However, there is no such regulation for SIF. We just have to remember, as a very basic, at the very core, SIFs are mutual funds. So they come under the same mutual fund trust, just that they are allowed. There are certain categories which are allowed by SEBI within SIF umbrella, wherein you can take certain derivatives. And so that is the only difference. And of course, there is a minimum investment amount. We'll come into those details in a while. So your fund management team, your sales team, operations team, everything stays the same for an SIF. So just quickly on the differentiation, or rather even the similarities of SIF versus the other vehicles, versus the other platforms. So as you can see on your screen, so we've plotted SIF your regular mutual fund schemes, PMS and AIF. So minimum investment amount for SIFs is rupees 10 lakhs. And now this is across all SIF strategies within one fund house. So say for example, right now I'm launching one fund, and your minimum investment in the strategy has to be 10 lakhs. Tomorrow, if there is another fund, so therefore I will have two investment strategies, but combined both put together, you need minimum of 10 lakhs of investment. So, so that is one criteria for SIF. Mutual funds, at Edelweiss, at least we have across most of our schemes minimum investment amount of rupees 100. So that's a big difference, that mutual fund minimum threshold is 100, and but for SIFs is 10 lakhs. PMS for a single strategy or a single portfolio investment is 50 lakhs. And for AIF, this limit for a single investment is 1 crore. So just to clarify again once more, that 10 lakhs is across all strategies or by a given fund house within SIF. And at a minimum, you would need 10 lakhs. Now, taxation is extremely important. Now, taxation at investor level for SIF is exactly the same as mutual fund. So if it is an equity investment, then up to 12 months of investment period would be 20%. Beyond that is 12.5%. Debt, we know there is a change in taxation in mutual funds, and everything is now taxed as slab rates. Now, between the two, if there is an investment, right? So because equity is greater than 65, debt greater than 65. So if there is an investment between the two, then the other category comes in play, which is up to 2 year of period, there is going to be slab rate of investment. Beyond 2 years, 12.5%. So that is a taxation that is applicable in mutual funds, and the same applies to SIF. PMS, since transactions take place, since it's a portfolio and transactions take place in the PMS or the DMATs, in the DMATs of individual investors. So therefore, it is taxed at a transaction level. AIF is not taxable in the hands of investor. That is because it is taxed at the fund level. Now, because AIF, I'm referring to category 3 here. Now, category 3 does not have the pass-through feature. That means taxation for AIF category 3 is done at the fund level itself. And here the taxation is at the maximum marginal rate, which is 42.7% as per the old tax regime. This is the number which includes your surcharge as well. So this is the taxation on your income, which is classified largely as business income under AIF category 3, and therefore it is taxed at the highest rate, which is 42.7%. PMS, we mentioned that that is going to be taxed at each transaction level in the hands of investor. Therefore, there is no taxation. It's not really a fund, it's a portfolio, right? So there is no taxation at the fund level. For mutual fund and for SIF, we are aware that there is no taxation for a mutual fund. Now, Section 10 of the income tax is the one which provides exemption to different types of platforms. And this is the same section essentially which also exempts agricultural income. So as per Section 1023D, says that the mutual fund, whatever transactions they do, that would not be subject to, at a mutual fund level, will not be subject to any taxation. So because mutual funds are exempt, there was a further clarification through a gazette late last year, that SIFs are also a mutual fund. Therefore, the same they would fall under the same section 1023D. Therefore, the same taxation applies to SIF that applies to a mutual fund. And the other very important part, which is the key differentiation, is the leverage or derivative exposure. Now, this is the key difference in the strategy of an SIF and an AIF essentially. Now, let me just start with the base, which is mutual funds. Now, under mutual fund, no leverage is allowed. Now, what I mean by leverage is that if your AUM is 100 crores, you can invest up to 100 crores. It is not that you can take an additional loan and on your beyond and invest beyond 100 crores. And therefore, we say that your exposure is capped at 100%. So, and derivatives are allowed. It is not that they are completely not allowed. In mutual funds, you can use derivatives for hedging or for rebalancing. So, say for example that you would want to, you just want to probably for a certain period, you have to reduce your exposure to say Reliance, for example. So you would just take a little bit of some bit of Reliance short, you would take some short futures. So therefore, there is no naked exposure here. By naked, I mean you can short only to the extent of the long position that is available, and there are various other restrictions also in mutual fund. That is, you can only take derivative exposures to Nifty 50 and Sensex stocks. You can short only to the extent of 30% of the shares held, and overall at an exposure level also there is a limit of 20% that you can consider for your shorting. So there are restrictions in terms of for a mutual fund platform. So same is allowed as in the PMS as well. That is, no leverage is permitted. You can take derivatives only for the purpose of hedging or for rebalancing your portfolio. So and in SIF, it goes a step ahead, and it tells you that, okay, tomorrow if you don't hold say for example Reliance, and if you want to short Reliance, you can do that. So that is a very important distinction between the derivative exposure that is allowed in mutual fund or PMS versus what is allowed in an SIF. So what SIF says that you can short, and at a portfolio level, short exposure through unhedged derivatives can go up to 25%. By unhedged, I mean the example of Reliance that I gave, that if you don't hold it and you can still go short. So you can have this is called taking a naked position. So that is the additional leeway that the SIFs are going to enjoy in terms of strategy. Versus in an AIF, what happens is leverage is permitted. So you can go up to 200%. So if you have 100 crores to deploy, you can take that additional leverage or loan, and you can actually deploy 200%. Of course, realistically, there are different strategies available at the AIF platform. So therefore, you would see exposures can be anywhere between 100 to 170% or so, depending on the strategy. So key differentiation, just to summarize, of course, minimum investment amount. We have to keep in mind that it is going to be a little higher than mutual funds, but much lower than a PMS and an AIF. So this really broadens the access of to a more nuanced and differentiated strategy for a lot of investors. So the investor pool, your potential pool really widens. So you have a big set of, say, mutual fund investors who are otherwise AIFs and PMS were far-fetched for them. They can now look at SIFs as a medium or a platform to invest and take some exposure to derivatives. So that is one differentiation. The other is taxation. Like I said, very big advantage that it has. SIF enjoys the same taxation advantage of mutual funds. And the third very important part is that on the derivative space, that now 25% unhedged derivative exposure, short exposure can be taken in SIFs. Now, just like we have multiple categories as per the 2017 circular of mutual fund categorization, we have here in SIF, there are 7 categories allowed, and each SIF or mutual fund house is allowed to launch one strategy under each of these categories. So we have equity, debt, and hybrid. Under equity, there are 3 products. There are 3 categories available. One is equity long short. That means you can invest across the entire universe of equities that is available, and up to 80% you can be invested here. Equity X top 100 long short, this means that beyond that, apart from the top 100 stocks, you need to be invested in beyond top 100 up to or a minimum of 65%. So that is your X top 100. Sector rotation is basically that you're taking certain sector calls. That, for example, if you are long on, say, if you're long on a sector, so you need to be long that. So you basically have to decide on whether you want to be long on all the stocks of a sector or you want to be short on stocks of a sector. So what this means is that you can decide from 4 sectors. On 3 sectors, you can be completely long. And say, for example, you're short on an auto sector, then you need to be short on all the stocks that you are invested in your portfolio. So it is not that, say, for example, in the auto sector, you are bearish on the sector, and so you can decide to be short whatever 3, 4, 5 or 7 stocks of auto sector. There cannot be a single stock on which you can be long. So that this is a very differentiated strategy and offering, but again, very concentrated and has to be a very high conviction strategy. because you really have to take a single call on a particular sector. Now moving to debt similarly, there is one long short available, and similarly again sectoral long short fund is available. Minimum you need to be invested in 2 funds. Hybrid investment strategies. Now there is an active asset allocator long short fund. Here you can be invested across, you can invest apart from debt and equity, you can look at even commodities and REITs and WITs. Hybrid long short is category wherein you can be invested of minimum 25% into equity and minimum 25% into debt. So, and this is the strategy which we are coming up with right now. So just to summarize, 7 categories are available under SIF, just how we have mutual fund categories that are available with us. So there are equity, debt, and hybrid. Under equity, there are 3 options. There are 3 categories. Under debt, there are 2 categories. Under hybrid, there are 2. And we are coming up with the hybrid long short fund. So now coming on to our strategy. And so just to, so our strategy is called Altiva Hybrid Long Short Fund. Another important point on SIF, which is why you don't see the name. So typically you would always see that for all of our funds, we would have Edelweiss Large Cap Fund, Edelweiss Balanced Advantage Fund. But here we are calling it Altiva Hybrid Long Short Fund. Now this is as per the SIF regulations, wherein we are asked to use a different brand name. So branding has to be different for SIFs to differentiate it from our regular mutual fund offerings, which is why if you see in our logo, we've mentioned Altiva SIF by Edelweiss Mutual Fund. So for a period of 5 years, we are allowed to say by Edelweiss Mutual Fund for better recognition and understanding of investors. After 5 years, we'll have to remove the reference to Edelweiss Mutual Fund altogether, and you will only see the reference to Altiva SIF. So that is why our fund name Altiva Hybrid Long Short Fund. Now, let's first understand the positioning of this product and where does this really fit into an investor's portfolio, and what gap or what problem are we addressing, and the solution that we are bringing for an investor's portfolio. So so here we've plotted relevant categories. So you can see that we have debt funds. So anyone who's looking for an income-oriented, relatively stable fund would probably look at a debt fund. Of course, there are returns are largely guided or essentially guided by the yields that are available and the maturity or duration bucket of your underlying portfolios, right? And the taxation is slab rate. Now, debt funds, of course, for someone who's looking and someone who has a very, very particular requirement of, say, investing into overnight or liquid or money market, low duration, would probably look at one of these categories. But however, we know that yields have started to move relatively, they've started to move downwards. So therefore, a little bit of challenge also comes in from the slab rate taxation. So net of taxation, the net returns are relatively moving downwards. The second category that is available is for an investor looking for a stable or income oriented solution is arbitrage. Now, arbitrage also, of course, a very interesting category on the mutual fund platform. It also gives you equity level taxation. And but largely also returns are again driven by short-term rates or repo rates. So as we see that the interest rate cycle is reversing, we can expect that slightly you would start to see a little fall in arbitrage returns as well. But again, a great category, of course, for post-tax returns, someone who's okay to take exposure or hedged exposure to equities. Now I'm just moving to the right-hand side, which is equity savings category. This is another category which is income oriented. It gives you debt-like returns with certain open exposure to equity, however. So debt, of course, there is no exposure to equity. Arbitrage exposure to equity is completely hedged. Equity savings, of course, in a return profile, slightly higher returns because it has that open equity exposure. We've noticed that for someone who's looking at an income oriented can be a little uncomfortable with the open equity exposure. So therefore, really the solution to that is the Altiva Hybrid Long Short Fund, which essentially is an arbitrage plus kind of a return potential or an offering or an aim to generate arbitrage plus kind of returns. And however, with limited or almost no open equity exposure. So that is the advantage, that the return profile is going to be between arbitrage and equity savings. And the taxation that our strategy brings is that up to 2 years would be slab rate, and beyond 2 years would be 12.5%. So this falls into that other taxation bucket. So now getting into details of our strategy. So here we are looking at investing. So these are going to be our 4 investing pillars. So arbitrage essential, because we mentioned it's an arbitrage plus strategy. So arbitrage, most of us would be aware, this is the regular cash future arbitrage. That is, for example, if you take 1400, at 1400, say for example, you have you're holding Reliance, and tomorrow say you short a 1 month contract at 1410. So this 10 rupees is what is your spread, and that is locked in. So it doesn't matter if Reliance goes up or Reliance goes down, because you are short, you've taken short futures of Reliance, and so you've locked in that 10 rupees of spread. So that becomes your return. So essentially, which is why we say that it is a relatively, it's a lesser risky product. If you stay invested for a reasonable time, you would realize the spread. Now, next is fixed income. We will have exposure to both AAA as well as AA exposure. We have a significant track record of special situations. Special situations essentially looking at IPOs, open offers, merger, demergers, buybacks is what are special situations. So we intend to generate an additional alpha through some of these opportunities that we will get. And the last bucket, and an important one, is the derivatives. Certain derivative strategies we will be taking to get you that additional alpha over arbitrage. Now we'll spend some time on this page here, and I will take you through a more detailed manner of how our portfolio would look like. Now, largely our portfolio is divided into 2 buckets: core strategies and enhanced drivers. Now, under core, we are looking at cash future arbitrage, like I mentioned above, about 10 to 15% of cash future arbitrage, a regular how your arbitrage fund works. And about 25% will be our exposure through covered call. Now, I give an example of cash future arbitrage of, say, you have 1400 of Reliance, and then you look at, then you short futures at 1410. So it gives you that additional 10 rupees of spread, right, in your regular arbitrage. What a covered call really tries to do is that now we are looking to earn an additional premium. And this is done by selling a call option at a certain strike price. So when you sell a call option, that means that this is essentially a contract that you enter into, that the buyer of the call option, we are the seller, so therefore we are receiving a premium. The buyer of the call option has to pay a certain premium to me, and against that it is decided that if and there is a certain strike price. For example, if this particular call option that I sell it at 1300. So today Reliance is at 14. Tomorrow the buyer of the call option can buy Reliance from me at 1300 rupees, and I will have to honor that. There is an option. It is called an option because the buyer has an option to exercise or to execute this contract or not. And however, it is an obligation for the seller. So therefore, I am taking a certain level of risk. So I have to be compensated. The buyer will give me a certain premium. So what happens really in a call option is that say now at 1300, the buyer can purchase it from me. They will give me, say, a premium of 130 rupees. So essentially, now if I have to compare it with an arbitrage product, which was 1400 Reliance and 1410, therefore 10 spread. Here, 1300 I will have to execute, and 130 is the premium that I get. So essentially, think of it as a short future equivalent of 1430, which is 1300 plus 130 rupees. So I get an additional 20% of profit or premium for taking that additional risk. So therefore, but of course, these are very measured and thought through risks that are taken. And so therefore, this is the additional alpha or additional return that we would be intending to generate. Now, these are called covered call. By covered call, I mean I will have to be holding that stock. right? So which is why the risk is relatively lesser in a case like this, because I will already have the Reliance stock in my hand to give it to the buyer of the call option. So therefore, this is called a covered call. By covered, this means I have a stock in my hand. I already have Reliance, which I have at 1400 at this point in time. And I am just selling a call option and earning a premium out of it. So therefore, there are two positions involved on the same stock. So this is called a covered option. So just to summarize, it's like an arbitrage plus derivative kind of an offer strategy. So therefore, if arbitrage gives me 10 rupees, this will give me an additional 20 rupees for the additional risk that I am taking. So this will be about 25% covered call, arbitrage about 15% exposure. Under fixed income, we will have exposure to quality debt instruments. We are looking at a AAA exposure of about 20%, and we're looking at a AA exposure of about around 30%. So here again, if I'm assuming that about 6.5 to 7% is what my AAA would give me, versus say a AA or AA plus would give me at about 8.5%. So here again, I'm looking, and this is a very curated portfolio approved by our committees, and so therefore we'll be very conscious of the AA exposure also that we will be taking. However, this will assist in giving that additional level of return. So largely, this is how my portfolio of fixed income is going to be constructed. There is an exposure of special situation. Now, by special situation, what we mean is that these opportunities just come by. So, for example, if there is an IPO coming and I want to participate in the main book, for example, so of course, there is a certain amount that gets blocked in the ASBA, right? Just the regular IPO process. So that's when a certain level of my AAA, now that is the function also, is core function of why I have a 20% allocation to AAA, is to get a higher element of liquidity in my portfolio. So whenever I have some interesting opportunities to participate in, whether there is IPO or there is open offer, there is a buyback, there is any opportunity that I want to participate in addition, I can liquidate my AAA position easily, about say 5 or 10%, whatever is required, and I will use that for that period. What really happens is that in a very short period, in a special situation, whether it's an IPO trade, that say for example, we enter into anchor position and then we exit. Of course, anchor will have a 3 month of lock-in. So within 3 months, after 3 months, I exit the position. So within that period, typically we would notice that we get relatively higher returns. In those 3 months itself, you would think that probably about say 20 to 30% of returns can be generated in that very, very short time. So this is going to be also a significant portion. Roughly, if I'm looking at say, because I'm calling this an arbitrage plus or arbitrage plus kind of product, say arbitrage plus 2.5%. I'm looking at out of my, and say post-tax, post-fees around 8.5 to 9%. So I'm looking at almost a good, say on a gross basis, about that would be about 10.5 to 11 to 11.5%. So about 1.5% of that, 1.5 to 2, is going to come from special situation. So out of 10.5 to 11, about 1.5 to 2% coming from here. So just probably if I get even a few good trades, this would be able to generate a good level of incremental alpha for me. Now, next I'm coming to the other derivative strategies. This I'm looking at the additional. Essentially, this would where I would take exposure to or take advantage of that additional 25% exposure that we are allowed under SIF, which is my unhedged short exposure that I'm allowed to take. So I'll just give example of a few strategies here that we can undertake. One simple one is a pair trade strategy, which, for example, if you look at within a particular sector, if you look at HDFC and ICICI. Now, say for example, those two stocks typically on a long term, if their prices are say in a ratio of say 0.6 or 0.5, 0.65 is typically the ratio. And if I see the ratio is skewed towards a particular stock, that say for example, now the ratio has changed to 0.5. So therefore, and however, I assume or historically, the ratio will then mean revert and go back to say a 0.65. So therefore, what I will really do is I will go long on one stock and short on the other stock. So therefore, this is called a pair trade. For example, I will go long ICICI Bank and I will go short HDFC Bank. So if I feel that ICICI would ultimately is relatively undervalued relative to HDFC, I will go long that, assuming the price is going to go up. And then say, for example, if I say that HDFC is a little highly valued and expected to go down, so therefore I will go short HDFC. So therefore, I will take advantage and sell it at a relatively higher price as per my calculations and models. So therefore, I will sell it and I'm going to buy ICICI. So this is called a pair trade. Pair means that within a particular sector itself, you are going long one stock and short another stock. Now, this is not possible in a mutual fund framework. You cannot short HDFC if you are not holding it in the long position. So therefore, this is the one type of trade that we will be engaging in. The other one is, say, for example, a straddle or a strangle, which is basically assuming that your stock or your index will move in a limited range. So the idea is that we will say, for example, if we are looking at a 25,000 level of index, I will say I will go short a call option at 26,000 and I will go short a put option, say, at 24,000. So both these short positions, just like I was explaining in the covered call, that whenever you go short, you are actually earning a premium. So the both of these strategies are going to make me earn a premium, and that is my additional return again that I will be generating. So so to summarize, we're looking at a core strategy. We're looking at some enhanced drivers for generating our returns. So cash future arbitrage, about 15% of the portfolio, covered call about 25% of the portfolio, and fixed income, we mentioned about AAA would be about, say, 20%. We're looking at AA at about 30%. 10% would be some exposure to up to 90 days of T-bill. That is essentially to take care of any margin requirement for your derivative strategies. Special situation would be anywhere about 5 to 10%, depending on the opportunity that comes in. That will essentially be funded through exposure that I have in AAA fixed income instruments. And then there is exposure of 10 to 20% of unhedged derivative strategies. For example, the pair trade or straddle strangle examples that I gave. So largely, this is going to be my product construct. The intention is that I'll just probably would like to reiterate. The intention is that we're looking at an arbitrage plus offering. So say, for example, arbitrage plus 2.5% of returns. We are looking at on a gross basis, say we look at about 10.5 to 11.5 kind of a return profile, and post-tax, post-fees, we are looking at about 8.5%. So that is the broad product construct and return profile of the product. So this is what I was referring to, that we would be looking at. The return profile essentially has to be higher than arbitrage. So over the long term, now we have back tested this strategy. And if you look at this consistently, if you were invested somewhere around June 2019 is from when we back tested, and this light blue line is arbitrage and the darker blue is the strategy. So consistently, this has outperformed. We have plotted here 2-year rolling returns. So 2-year return as on June 21, since our first NAV would be of June 19. So 2-year return as on June 21, July 21, August 21, consistently you would see that our 2-year returns have been higher than the arbitrage 2-year returns. Now, the reason we have plotted 2-year returns is one is the main reason essentially is that we are looking at a 2-year idle investment period. Also because there is a 2-year taxation that is involved basis the product construct. So up to 2 years, slab rate, beyond 2 years, 12.5%. So therefore, we are looking at a more, if you're looking at a tax efficient alternative income oriented. So therefore, the ideal investment horizon for this product would be 2 years. So hence we've plotted arbitrage returns and for a 2-year period against that are 2-year rolling returns. So the minimum return for over a 2-year basis, 7% is what we've looked at basis the backtested results. Arbitrage 4.5%. To maximum 12.9% versus arbitrage 8.73. On an average, like I was saying, that our return profile is around 10.1% on an average versus arbitrage of 6.6%. So just to just lay it out that when we look at even shorter term investments like 1 month, 3 month, and 6 months, so you can expect certain volatility over a 1 month and 3 month period. This was essentially during COVID time when we saw this when we saw these negative returns. So largely over a longer period you would see probably very few instances of, say, a negative month or a negative quarter. Over a 6-month period we haven't seen a 6-month negative period. But what we've noticed is that a 3-month or a 1 month or 3-month negative, the strategy is built in a way that it very quickly recovers in the following months. So therefore, over a longer period, you would see that there are no negative instances. Now, quickly on the risk reward positioning across the categories that we started off this presentation with, which is debt, arbitrage, and equity savings. The debt fund, of course, has no equity open exposure. It has 8.65. This we've used a short duration fund, and the annualized standard deviation, of course, being a debt fund, is 1.4. Arbitrage around 8% returns as on the end of August. Arbitrage category, of course, it has its equity exposure is completely hedged. And 8% 2-year returns with the annualized standard deviation of 0.71. And of course, this particular R strategy would at some point in time, for example, because of its exposure to for special situations, it can have some open equity exposure. However, intentionally, we would not be taking any directional exposure to equities at any point. Any exposure or any open equity exposure is only going to be incidental, essentially due to the special situation trades that we will be doing of IPO, open offer, buyback that I was referring to. So 5 to 15% of open equity. Even with that, we're looking at 11.53% returns. But despite this open equity exposure, we still have 2.84% of standard deviation. So this is an extremely important element of our returns. And because when you compare it to the others, it is quite it is just incremental versus the other income-oriented strategies in the market, but the return profile is relatively higher. So if you compare it to equity savings, again, equity savings, of course, because of its relatively higher exposure, open exposure to equity would give you slightly higher returns, but the standard deviation also is going to be much higher, right? Because of its return profile. So 7.3% of annualized standard deviation over the last 2 years versus 2.84 of this particular strategy. So at this point, I think I'd like to stop here and probably open up for any questions on the strategy, on the return profile, or even on just in general on SIF, and if anyone has, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Rishabh? Rishabh, you are on mute. Rishabh, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Shikha, meanwhile, there are a few questions in the chat.
We've got
Okay,
a
please go
question
ahead.
from Rahul P. Jain. He's asking for accredited investors, what should be the minimum ticket size in the fund? And is it an open-ended or a close-ended fund? So accredited. Can't hear.
No, say it again.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Rishabh, you're audible.
Yeah. So There's a question around accredited investor. Is there a concept of accredited investor in SIF?
Yes. So in fact, the 10 lakh rupee of minimum investment limit does not apply to accredited investors. However, what we've seen these are about 700 or 800 of them, if I'm not wrong, of investors. So wherein there can be a lower investment. So this 10 lakhs is not applicable to them. And I think 1 second, there was an additional question here. Yeah, so this fund is going to be open-ended. So a very important question, in fact, because this fund, it's so unlike, so an AIF typically would be, say, closed-ended, or there would be a period where there is a commitment period that would be where an amount would be raised, and then there would be some drawdowns that would be applied in an AIF. There is no such such restrictions with respect to the period of investments. It's just going to be a regular mutual fund NFO. So our NFO is from 1st to 15th of October. And there is and just during that NFO period, and then after allotment, it would open up. So there is so this just going to be like a regular open-ended. It's a mutual fund. One important point is that so while this is open-ended, by technical terms in an SIF, this is going to be called a interval fund. By that, what I mean by that is, in SIF, what is allowed is that you can have different subscription frequencies and redemption frequencies. So in our fund, this is good. We have daily subscription frequencies, and we'll have twice in a week, we will have redemption frequencies. So we will have a redemption allowed, so which is on a Monday and Wednesday. So you can subscribe on any day. So there's going to be daily NAV, and you can redeem either on a Monday, you can place your redemption, or you can place on Wednesday. And the settlement is going to be just like equity. So it's going to be T+2. So which is why we've looked at Monday and Wednesday, so that that is why by Wednesday or by Friday, you will have the proceeds with you.
Shikha, one more question. What would be the ideal investor for this particular fund? If you can, elaborate on the ideal investor, or if you can position this product in a portfolio of a client, how much allocation should be towards this product?
Sure. So this product is essentially for someone who's looking at an income-oriented fund. So it's looking at a relatively stable profile of returns, not too much volatility, and is looking essentially, this product is, I would call it an all-weather or market-neutral strategy. What I really mean by that is that irrespective of where the market goes, whether the market is on an uptrend or on a downtrend, this fund should give you an arbitrage plus kind of returns. So that is the intention. So which is why anyone who's looking for an arbitrage kind of a product, or someone who's looking for equity savings but is not comfortable with the open equity exposure that comes along with it. So therefore, this product is for that bucket of investors who are looking for a relatively stable, income-oriented, arbitrage-like solution, but a little better relatively better return profile. But however, the risk also, the relatively higher risk, it's not too much. I would say, because like you can see on your screen right now, it's about 2.8% over a 2-year investment horizon. So therefore, and of course, someone who's looking at a 2-year of investment period, because that's where post-tax returns, it would get efficient. However, even if someone is looking, I would say, for a 6-month period, and I think there's a question on lock-in as well. I'll address that along with this question. So the strategy comes in with an exit load of 6 months of 0.5%. After 6 months, there is no exit load. So even when someone is comparing the return profile, even post-tax, to say a debt product or to an arbitrage, this fund can still be considered by someone who wants to stay invested for at least 6 months. So someone who has that kind of a return profile, even less than 2 years on a post-tax basis, because its return profile would be slightly higher, even on a gross basis versus say a debt kind of a product. For a 6 month, minimum 6 month period, also say someone is looking at a liquid fund or money market or low duration product, and is okay to have a strategy of this kind or a portfolio of this kind, they can also consider this product. So it really depends on the investor's bucket, but maybe starting off with say a 5% allocation, staying with us through the track record or through the when we start off the NFO, and then probably looking at slightly increasing the allocation. So about, I would say 10 to say starting off with 5% and then moving on eventually to say looking at a 10-15% allocation as well. Because it's essentially your income, right? It's a replacement for your income oriented strategy.
Correct. So another kind of set of investors you could target is the FD investors.
Yes, of course. So that depends on the time horizon again. So anyone who's looking for a 2 year, so that's going to be an easy decision in that case. But we'll have to be conscious. FD, of course, and people are used to say if they're used to a return. So then, so say and whether they're looking for what kind of payouts in an FD as well. So if even with that, I would say anyone looking for at least 2 years is taxed well even versus an FD product. So very clearly.
Okay. So there's one more question that an RM is asking: if the Nifty declines by roughly 10 to 15%, how much would this portfolio fall? So basically, they're asking the correlation between Nifty falling and this portfolio falling.
Sure. So this strategy is built in a way, like I was saying, this is an all-weather or market neutral strategy, or I can also, for example, or just in other terminology, an absolute return kind of a product, which we generally speak of by absolute return or market neutral or all-weather. What is essentially meant is that doesn't matter where Nifty moves, doesn't matter whether it goes up or goes down, it should give you relatively stable returns. So which is why if you look at a return profile also, when I look at the longer term, if I look at the curve also of my return profile, you would see that it's not really related to broadly where Nifty would move. There would obviously be some instances that, say for example, an event like COVID, wherein I would have some open equity exposure of say about 5% or 10% open equity, and say my entire market is going down, and so therefore if I have that open 5% or 10% because say I'm invested into a large IPO, or if I have a large buyback position or a large open offer position at that point in time, and the market in general declines, and that is when my stock will also decline. So therefore I would see probably in that month or two wherein we would see some negative returns. But these patches, even in arbitrage, for example, you can see some of these patches, but that's like maybe 1 month or 2 months in a period of 2 years or 3 years. But largely the product construct, it is made in a manner that it doesn't matter really where Nifty goes. The objective of this fund is going to be to give you a certain return. The aim is going to be to give a certain return irrespective of the market moves, which is why we call this an income oriented strategy, like a debt oriented strategy, and that's the main aim of this offering.
Understood. So there's another question that whether this fund has an capping of AUM or investors like we have in AIF. So it's an open-ended fund, and it's like MF, correct?
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. There is no, I mean, if I understand the question correctly, there is, it's not that it needs a minimum amount that, it just that each investor should have a minimum of 10 lakhs. So that is the only base requirement, that there should be 10 lakhs invested by a particular investor. After 10 lakhs, what we've mentioned is that for our fund, you can the incremental additional flows can only be 1,000. So your SIP, STP, all your features, additional purchase is only going to be 1,000. So you start with a 10 lakhs, and then the incremental will only be that much. So that is our that's it. That's the only requirement.
So there's one more question. If the invested fund falls below 10 lakh, will the client have to add additional capital?
Okay, so very important question. I'm going to add some more points along with this. Sorry, just give me 1 second. So the requirement is that at all points in time, there should be minimum 10 lakhs of investment in this. However, if it goes, say, beyond, it goes below, it becomes 8 lakhs or 9 lakhs, the regulation says that there cannot be any partial redemption. So it only says about this, there is no top-up required, that if it goes to 8 or 9, there is an additional amount that has to be pumped in. It is just that if you want to redeem, then you redeem the entire amount. So it cannot be partial redemption if it is a 10 lakh if it goes below 10 lakhs. However, another example I'd like to give, that say tomorrow this fund your total investment becomes 12 lakhs due to say mark to market or your additional investments, it becomes 12 lakhs. At that point in time, if you want to redeem, you can redeem 2 lakhs. So then your minimum amount is going to be 10. You cannot redeem say 4 or 5 lakhs, because in that case it will go below 10 lakhs. So therefore, just to maintain that 10 lakhs, there are certain rules with regard to your redemptions. So either and if you want to redeem, then if it's below 10, you just redeem the full amount. That will be allowed. No partial redemptions are going to be allowed. If say, for example, it reaches 12, and if you want to redeem, you can redeem 2 lakhs, but you cannot redeem 5 lakhs, because in that case, it will go below 10 lakhs.
Understood. And there will be only expense ratio for this particular fund and no fund management charges, correct?
So there is just going to be your regular regular mutual fund TERs. Exactly the same TER slabs are going to be applied. So if it's an equity oriented fund, you would have 2.25, debt oriented is going to be maximum of 2. So the same rules are going to apply here. There is no separate management fee. Management fees, of course, gets covered under the TER that we will be charging, and there is no performance fees, so there is no concept of a hurdle rate. There's no hurdle, there's no performance fees on that, there's no concept of watermark or catch up, because this is exactly your expense structure is going to be just like your mutual fund.
Understood. So I believe, Shikha, we've covered almost all the questions. And if there are more questions, we'll mail it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be happy to address anything, whether it is with regard to just generally want to understand SIF, or someone has any more clarity or details that are required for how we are running some of our strategies. I would also encourage that I've given some examples of say covered call or say special situations and straddle strangle. Our presentation also has in good detail has explained these strategies, including some of these special situations like buyback, IPO. How does that work? Our expertise in handling IPOs. So some of these strategies we've been running in our other funds as well. For example, a balance advantage, aggressive hybrid equity savings. We have been taking special situation positions and also certain covered call positions. So this is something that is within our expertise. So that is some of these aspects are covered in detail in the rest of the slides. So I would really encourage you to go through them. So that would give you a better understanding of some of these strategies.
Done. I will share the presentation with the front end. and we'll obviously post you all the questions that we have from people.
Sure. Absolutely. Be happy to address.
Thank you so much
Thank
for giving us the time and making us understand the SIF. Hope you have a good day.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risk. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.